actually get paid to talk to Fred Haskett. I mean, do I have the greatest job in America, Fred?
Geez, and I thought it was my way that I got to talk to you.
Oh, okay. Okay, I get it. So it looks like you're broadcasting live from your Missouri studio because I still see that dang Ohio State thing in the background.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's there.
Are the
It's there.
Buckeyes going to have a good football season? What are they doing with quarterback?
There's two or three in competition, so I think things are looking pretty good. They had some pretty good talent in their on the bench last year behind the starter, so I think we're going to be good. We retained a couple of the key wide receivers, kept most of the defense. This was a year that I mean, there were some key people that went to the draft, but we retained more than we lost for a change. So I think the nucleus is there to have a pretty good year. So
They're
we'll
just
see.
they're a recruiting engine, aren't they?
Oh gosh, yeah, it's like a war every year between them and Alabama as to who's going to have the best class.
Yeah.
And they just keep going like this,
Hmm.
and edging up on each other. So yeah, it's a pretty good place to go.
Well, now you've got me
Uh,
excited for football season. Everyone who's a real green customer watching this show should already know Fred Haskett, but let's just say we have some new folks today. Give us a little bio on Fred.
well, 47 years in the lawn, landscape, and tree care business. How about that?
That's
Uh,
fantastic.
43 of it was an internship, so I could become a consultant. So,
Nice.
and I graduated at 43 years in, and now I spend most of my time working with my clients directly. I manage peer groups and do one-on-one coaching. I'm working with approximately 40 companies in the industry on a regular basis, and they range in size from about a million five up to 50 million on that. So, and interesting news, I'm going to my lawn care groups are now full, so I'm going to be launching a new lawn care peer group, and I have a couple of contacts there too. But again, I'll be looking for some members for a new peer group devoted to lawn care.
And I'm going to drop your contact info in the notes section here. Tell us just a 2 minute outline on what's it mean to be in a peer group.
Well, interestingly enough, the biggest thing that owners of small businesses deal with every day, day in and day out, is isolation. They really don't have, they don't want to take it home to their family every night. They can't really share their concerns, their fears with their team because they're supposed to be the motivator in chief of their teams. So they really don't have a lot of ability to really let their hair down. Plus, nobody holds them accountable, really. At the end of the day, their customers and their employees overall do, but directly in a direct report setting, they don't. But coming together in a peer group concept with companies of a similar size, of a similar business model, who don't compete with each other, those are kind of the standards that I use. You can come together and basically you join a board of directors set up for your business, and you're on their boards of advisors. And you come together and you're able to let your hair down, you're able to talk openly with folks that do pretty much what you do every single day. You hold each other accountable. You help each other. You prop them up in the tough times. You circle back with them to help them out. They help you. I mean, it's just a marvelous experience. And I've been managing them for over 6 years now, and I currently have close on to 7 groups. And it's just astonishing how rewarding it is
Well, you
to
get
be
to
a part
watch
of it.
you get to watch their businesses grow. And I know I've shared this with you before, but the number one reason our customers come to Solutions, our user conference, isn't for the titillating content, although it's titillating. It is to hang out with their peers and find out what weed control did you use on zoysia this year that worked. And
Right.
this is really an extension of that, a very structured extension of that peer association. But you got Papa Fred holding them accountable for the KPIs. How can we miss this? What are we going to do differently next? And to your point, when you become an entrepreneur, you don't always have that structure and accountability. So that is vital.
Right, right. So it really helps them, And they're also a lot of fun. The groups get to know each other, they get close to each other. There are friendships and bonding that happens, and we meet, come together a couple times a year face to face, in addition to the routine conference calls. And they work hard. They deep dive into a topic for a couple days, but then we go out and we play. We had a couple fishing trips, some golf excursions. They work hard in the group and they play hard in the group. So they're really a unique experience.
And I follow you on Facebook, and your excursions look really, really fun, Fred. But the structure is what, a monthly conference call and then a couple times a year in person?
Well, we meet, typically most of the groups meet twice a month.
Twice a month.
For about an hour, hour and a half. We do a Zoom call now. They were conference calls in the beginning. Now we've expanded the technology to video calls, and they stay in touch with each other in between calls if they have issues to follow up. Because I encourage them to continue to talk with each other even when they're not in the group settings. And then twice a year they come together face to face. They share their financials. They do a State of the Union report on their business, and then they pick a topic, and we do a real deep dive. Topics such as leadership or budgeting, business planning, sales and marketing, just liability management, asset management. There's a lot of things that we do. Asset protection. So there's a lot of things that they do and do those deep dives on that. So, but routinely twice a month they're together as well, and that's where they really develop that dialogue, that consistent relationship building that they do inside the group. So they're fun.
And at least once a month, or is it twice a month, you review everyone's KPIs and everyone's showing each other where they're at financially?
We talk about them once a month, and we do a formal review a little bit more on a quarterly basis with that, and then we do a deep dive into it at the face-to-face meetings. So twice a year, they have a 2-hour window in the meetings where they present all of their business plan, where they're at with those variations, their budget, their balance sheet, the whole thing, and everybody reviews it and works with strategies for them going forward for the next 6 months.
And you are well-rounded, my friend. The topics are marketing, financial planning, recruiting, human resource issues. I know I've caught you and you've been dealing with some interesting human resource issues, but you also have a great Rolodex, right? So if I'm in your peer group and I come to you with a problem that you say is not in your pay grade, you know everyone, Fred, so you can also align them with the right resource.
Yeah, I can match them up. If I can't solve the problem, I know someone who can. If I can't give them their inputs, we can bring somebody else in and accentuate the experience for them. And we bring in guest speakers in those conference calls, and sometimes at the face-to-face meetings.
That's amazing. And as I mentioned, Real Green would like to buy a nice steak dinner at your next one. So keep us in mind. I haven't been out for a steak dinner. I get to start traveling next week. I'm so excited.
Well, you have the dates. I sent them to you.
Okay.
One of the lawn care groups is meeting not too far from where you're at, in Memphis, in August. So I
am on it like blue bonnet. So today we're talking about mid-year KPIs. So what should green industry businesses be looking at? Call it June. We've just got past what we'll call spring. I was at ChemLawn for 10 years, Scotts Miracle-Gro for 16. And on Memorial Day, we always said you can call the year on May 31st. You can get within 5% of what your financials are going to look like December 31st, absent a major weather event or something along those lines. But you still have to mind the pennies and keep your eye on the ball, as well as begin thinking about 2022. So tell us what we should be looking at in June.
Well, the May and June results, those are two key reporting periods. When you're coming through the spring, that really sets the tone for how you're going to do on your budgeting process and how you're going to do on your performance through the year. So taking a hard look at the numbers in June and in early July is really a key indicator. It helps you. You still have lots of time left to also make corrections if you need to, and further extend what you're going to do for planning in the subsequent year. So there's a bunch of them, but one of the key ones to look at first, and one of the things I always stress the most in our industry, is look at your gross margins. Look at how you're performing from a production standpoint within your company. Your labor and materials, subs, and workman's comp. Those are the significant direct costs, cost of goods sold, that you should be looking at and measuring that against what your plan was against what the industry standards are. So a real hard look at gross margin, what your performance is one of the key ones that really tells you how you're doing. Because your net is going to be a lagging indicator through that, especially in the lawn and landscape business, where we're heavily hit with costs in late Q1 and early Q2.
Yeah.
So your net's going to be a lagging indicator, but your gross margin will tell you right now how we did through that period, the most costly period of operation. And if you're doing well, then that means the rest of your year is going to be fairly strong. But if you're not, if you're struggling there, you've still got the rest of the year to make some course corrections on those kind of things and get things back on the right standard on that. Because you're not going to see a good net number probably until July or August on that. But the gross margin is a key leading indicator on that. Another one that you should look at, and everybody should be budgeting. I know not everybody does, but I try to work very hard to get my people to establish a budget plan on that. And that is your budget versus actual, because that tells you how I did against what I said I would do, against your forecast on that. And it takes you, once you start budgeting on a formal basis, it usually takes about 2 or 3 years to really learn the benefits of that process and understand it implicitly. But if you're there, you should be looking at how did I do against how I said I was going to do, because you're teaching yourself as an owner, as a manager, to be a good planner and forecaster of your fiscal operations too, not just your growth on that. So those are
question, Fred. When you say you encourage people to budget and forecast for the following year, when you do that, question one, when do you do that? When will your folks start planning for 2022? And what is the average top line growth you ask for them to shoot for?
Okay, so I start sending out the first initial reminders about business planning and budgeting in late July and early August, because that's the time to begin the process, because it takes a while if you're going to do it right. And the first step is to establish a business plan. And I have a really simple basic tool that covers about 10 buckets in your business: financials, employees, equipment, sales and marketing, it's administration, safety, all those things. And you're looking at 3 things in each of the buckets: current reality, where we're at today, where we want to go, what's our goal, and then an action plan. How are we going to get from here to there? How are we going to get from where we're at today in this area to where we want to be on that? And that's the first step of planning. And I encourage people to do that in August and September, and then begin the budgeting process as soon as they complete the business plan. And we talk about that a lot and work with that in my groups with that. But the indicators come out in July, and I start nudging everybody. Now's the time to do it right, because you want to have it pretty well set sometime in November or December. So you can also take a hard look quickly at your current reality and do some tax planning for the current fiscal year before it's too late in the year, if you need to do some maneuvering to mitigate your tax position. So that's when we do it. That's when you should do it. And the people that are doing it that way, after they've done it for a year or two, really see a difference in how their business operates. So another thing you want to look at is your sales backlog. You're looking and always managing your sales and marketing activity, and where are we at? What do we have on the street in proposals? Where are we at with with those things. What are we doing to close? What are we doing to continue to hit the numbers that we have, both in contracts, programs, and extras, the seeding and aerating, soil amendment stuff, things like that. On landscape, it's, you know, planting and installations, redoing areas, things of that nature. So you always want to be maintaining that backlog. And that's really been interesting the last year or two, because of staffing has really pushed out some backlogs, because you can have a not enough backlog, but sometimes you can have too much backlog, because that then becomes problematic and you start to have quality and satisfaction issues with some of your clients. And right now I've got some clients that have backlogs that go out 3 or 4 months on the landscape side. And that's, you know, I think 4 to 6 weeks on the landscape side. And, you know, you're looking at projecting out probably, you know, 4 to 6 weeks of some of your different extra things with fungicides, extra additional upsells on insecticides, and seeding and aerating as you come into the fall, because you should be doing that again in July and early August. So you set the stage for your September and October seeding.
Quick question. You said go back to the 4 to 6 week window on landscaping. You might have contracts signed further out, but you're only forecasting 4 to 6 weeks?
Usually forecasting 4 to 6 weeks on your extras, on your enhancement work.
Okay.
So, you know, those are projects, not your contract base.
Got it.
But you're always managing your backlog in terms of what we have out in proposals on your contract work as well. So what's out there actively. So there's 3 or 4 key indicators in managing a backlog: proposal activity, proposed sales, and then active jobs that are extra out beyond your basic programming work.
Got it. Very cool.
You should keep tabs on all of that activity, because if it starts to shrink or starts to expand and get too long in the tooth, you need to do something about it and not get caught by surprise. So there's another metric you should be looking at right now in your operation. Another one is sales of extras. How are we doing with those things? On the landscape side, we call them enhancements. On the lawn care side, they're called extras. But how are we doing? Are we doing year over year? Are we ahead of the game or behind? What do we need to do to bring that up? What was our goals? Because that's an indicator of client satisfaction. And that impacts on your retention as well. Because if people are buying extras from you, that's an indication that they're satisfied on that. So it's not just how many extras did we sell. The extra sales say something about the quality of the work and the impression that your clients have of you.
That's a fact. Quick question on extras. So I was fortunate to work for Tim Portland when I was at Scott's Miracle-Gro. He's now the CEO of Yellowstone.
Yep, I know Tim.
We would, at the end of every season, take a look at the extras sold. We called them a la carte, because we had this marketing person that thought it should be like restaurant. Let's look at our a la cartes or our special jobs. But we would evaluate what was the highest calorie revenue of the extras versus the lowest calorie. Do you take your clients through an exercise of determining, because sometimes I know you've seen that you'll have scope creep with, oh, you want that? Yeah, we'll do that. We can, we'll refinish your deck and we'll charge you this. How do you really establish what are the highest calorie extras? And do you steer your clients away from the lower calorie extras?
The best way to do it is is separating them out as individual revenue streams in your budgeting and your P&L process, so you can track right then and there the gross margin performance of each of your revenue streams, your programs, your contracts, your extras as they pertain to landscape, your extras as they pertain to lawn care. A lawn care company should be tracking their extra sales as separate revenue lines. Like fungicides and insecticides could be bundled together. Grub control is usually a big one. That usually is run as a separate line item. Soil control, lime, sulfur, pH management, that should be tracked. And then seeding and aerating should be tracked individually, separately by materials and labor, so that you can track the gross margin performance of each of those extra revenue streams and see what you're doing. Now, in terms of, the other thing that you do with them is if the gross margin performance is low, then first thing you need to address is your pricing on that, because that's an indicator that you're not charging enough on that. But if it's, but if it's really poor and you put some effort into it and you really still can't sustain it, then maybe you should abandon that line on that. But again, because these lines contribute to the end result horticulturally and agronomically that we're trying to achieve for our clients, I'm pretty loath to say abandon something that helps make the lawns look better, the landscapes look better. I'm more interested in saying, well, do we have an efficiency problem delivering that particular service, or do we have a pricing issue when we're selling that particular service? Let's continue to offer the service, and let's figure out a way to make that service, appropriately profitable to our operation.
And this might be low-hanging fruit to you and I, but what would you say are the top 5 extras a chemical turf care company should be offering their customers?
First, grub control, fungicides for disease control in the heat of the summer, pH management, which would be lime or sulfur, depending on if you've got acidic or alkaline soil conditions, and then seeding and aerating as a project. And then another one that some people do really well and some people struggle with is full service lawn renovations, where you're basically going in and replacing the lawn, generally with a non-selective application like a Roundup product or something like that, and then coming back in and then cultivating with a heavy aeration and then slit seeding for that. That can be a big moneymaker. That has a degree of difficulty, though. You have to really know what you're doing to do that consistently with that. But those, I think, are the big ones that I see out there. Now, there are other revenue streams that are starting to show up consistently on the lawn care world, and that's pest control services like perimeter sprays, mosquito treatments, tick and flea, and some people are even going into internal pests. Generally, pest is I consider a separate line item, and the extras from that are separate as well when you track them.
Do you encourage lawn care operators who maybe have maxed out a geographic area, they've maxed out extras, and they say, Fred, we've killed it in exterior pest, we're going to go in the house? How do you coach your clients on that?
Well, first of all, they have to understand that it's a different business. The customer relationship issues are a little different. It's a little more fear-based on your client basis, so you have to understand the nuances of that. Your technicians have to have a higher level of training in client communication and just basic decorum in terms of, because they're going to be in the houses where the clients are. The other thing, your CSR staff needs to be a little more engaged in getting those appointments and scheduled on that, because you have to get into the house. It's a little hard, and you have to do a call ahead process. It's a little harder to get your routing done from an efficiency standpoint. So the CSRs have to be really good at convincing people they need to take the service when it's scheduled to maximize efficiency, effectiveness, and therefore profitability.
Yep. Very, very cool. Any other KPIs for our mid-season checkup?
Another big one this time of year is cash flow, is managing your cash, because typically lawn care and landscape companies start to have difficulty from mid-May to mid-June coming up short on cash because of material costs and AR issues and things of that nature. So again, AR aging is a key area that you should be looking and watching on a weekly basis, managing your cash position, and also managing your line of credit in that regard. And that's a big deal, having your line of credit available in that mid to late Q2 period is when you're going to maximize your usage of it. But you also need to manage that line of credit pretty well, because the banks look at lines of credit and they evaluate by what they call ins and outs. They want to make sure that you're using it when you need it, but when you have excess cash, you're putting it back in. So they watch ins and outs on that. And I tell people occasionally, if you've got if your line of credit is, you know, when it starts to get close to the max, start to put some money into it as you get it. And even if you don't need it, put money back in it on that. Show them, the bank, that you're using it appropriately. Because if you don't, occasionally they'll just get tired of the process and they'll just convert it to a term loan and tell you about it later. A lot of that happened in 2009 and 10 as a result of the recession that we had. A lot of people had their lines of credit converted to term loans. One, because they were maxing it out and they weren't making any payments at all. The other ones that lost them, and this was a surprise too, because banks were worried about their balance sheets as well, is people that weren't using their line of credits because they said they didn't need them. Those got closed because it made the bank's balance sheet look better with that, because that shows up, as a negative for a bank with those things. So I always tell people, well, if you have a line of credit and you don't need it, use it anyway. Take some money out occasionally, put some money back in occasionally. Make sure the bank sees you're using it. So watching your cash flow, watching your cash management, and managing your line of credit through those periods, make sure you have the tools. But if you're not paying attention to it, you could get blindsided and surprised by that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Another thing I see, and this really happens more with lawn care companies and landscape companies, is when they're doing termed purchases, when it's not really a KPI, but it's managing your cash. When you're doing term purchases, you're buying 2 truckloads of fertilizer in January or February, or even last December. You took delivery on them and you consumed them, but the bill doesn't come due till July. You should still be accounting for that usage in that by doing a series of accruals in every month that you're dipping into that, because every once in a while you'll get caught off guard. And I'll get every year it happens to me. I get this call. The July numbers come in or the June numbers come in, and all of a sudden the owner freaks out because his P&L just took a nosedive. And you could start digging around, doing a little forensic work, and all of a sudden you saw that, they paid their fertilizer bill for the fertilizer that they ordered last December, they used in March, April, May, and June. They paid for it as one thing, and they didn't account for the consuming it in those 3-month periods through accruals. And your accountant can help you with that. That's an accounting adjustment. It's a general ledger thing. But companies that are managing their positions like that do that, because all of a sudden your numbers in March, April, and May look too good because your material costs were down, and all of a sudden it sinks like a stone and your results go completely cattywampus. Now, by the end of the year, it all washes out. You're fine, but still it's disconcerting when you see a nice upward trajectory and all of a sudden in the middle of the year it goes.
Strong business owners use pacings by month, and you want to be able to see what you're looking at. Yeah.
And again, the other thing too that I see people doing that hurts their cash flow in Q3 is they don't accrue their prepayments in that process. And you get all this money in for prepayments in December, January, February, but some of that money's paying for round 3, 4, 5, 6 on that, and you need to accrue that as well. So 1, your P&L is accurate, and 2, you're managing your cash flow, because you're going to have to pay for that material and that labor in September and October. And if you don't manage it correctly, all of a sudden you're going to say, wow, why am I short? I'm making money, but I don't have any cash, because I wasn't managing my cash, because I wasn't watching my accruals on my prepayments. I spent the money. The best thing to do with prepayments as soon as it comes in is stick it in your line of credit or put it in a money market fund and forget about it until you absolutely need cash on that. But that doesn't always happen. But if you're doing accruals on those things like term purchases and prepayments and things of that nature, your financials are going to tell you the truth every month instead of giving you a false read. I call them funny numbers.
Funny money.
Don't get all excited about funny numbers, because it does adjust at some point in time.
Yeah.
So those are, I think, the biggest ones. There's a bunch of other KPIs, obviously. In our business, I don't really get too excited about net until late in the until late in the second quarter, early in the third quarter. Typically the third quarter is when that happens. But to know if you're doing okay, you need to measure that first one that I talked about, which is gross margin.
Are your clients experiencing any supply chain issues this year?
I'm hearing about it, yes, a little more than normal. I've heard some people with in the irrigation side have some trouble getting components. The holiday lighting folks are starting to get nervous about their supply chain for this fall with that, because most of that is offshore. Most of it comes from China. I have heard some fertilizer shortages. Spare parts seem to be a big issue on the landscape side with mowing operations and things like that. Earlier this spring, there was a real big shortage in pine straw in the Southeast. People couldn't find pine straw because pine straw is so labor intensive to gather, to harvest and bale. Again, the staffing issues were affecting the suppliers of pine straw. They couldn't get enough people to go get the pine straw put up into bales to deliver it. So there was a pine straw shortage. So the staffing affects your vendors, your suppliers, and some of the offshore production of things that we've allowed to happen. We've let our manufacturing and production go overseas, and this is where we start to regret some of those moves, and it's affecting us. We're seeing that the being part of a global economy is not necessarily a best case scenario for domestic issues, especially during critical time periods like we're having now. So yeah, a variety of things. I haven't heard. Yeah, I mean, it's not the pine straw thing was big, and obviously the biggest one that we have facing us industry wide, and it affects every single one of my clients, is staffing, is labor. But some states are now, I think we've got 24 states that have now addressed this issue by cutting off the extra money that people were getting paid to sit at home and do nothing. There's, as immediately as those dates, because those dates started back in May and they're moving through June. It's fascinating when you look at the jobs report on a weekly basis in those states. Within 5 to 10 days of that money stopping, there's a immediate uptick in people out looking for work and getting jobs.
Really? That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's amazing. And as each state shuts it down, because they all had different dates when they were going to stop it, you're seeing an immediate uptick in people finding jobs.
Interesting.
So,
Very,
the reports I was hearing
cool.
was saying, "Oh no, that's not affecting anything." Baloney.
Pretty much is. I know they closed down the local Taco Bells and Dairy Queens because they cannot get workers around here.
Yeah, I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. I mean, you can't. The restaurants are now at the point here where I live. We the masks are gone. We're back to normal, and all the restrictions are gone. And yet the restaurants still are short-staffed, and they can't. The fast food places aren't opening up their dining rooms because they can barely find people to staff the windows, the drive-throughs. And I saw a sign on a restaurant, and Kelly and I were having lunch about a week or two ago that says, "We apologize in advance for the slow service, and please appreciate the people serving you who showed up today."
Yeah. Last night I went out with 20 of my golf buddies, and we get to the pub and my salmon arrived for my salad after it was gone, like 30 minutes later. And the girl sitting next to me is like, "This is ridiculous." I'm like, just be glad she showed up to bring our beer and our salad. Just, we're not complaining. It's just a whole new world.
Yeah. And it's not just affecting us. This is affecting the service industry almost universally across the country.
Well, Disney World, great example. I spend a lot of time there. Disney can't get employees to reopen, and it has nothing to do with COVID. Believe me, DeSantis has Florida opened up, but they can't open their restaurants and hotels because they don't have the labor.
Right. I mean, I just had a venue change with one of my meetings because the hotel basically said, "Look, we can't guarantee you we'll have staffing. We can't guarantee it. So, we're not booking any groups,
That's insane.
individuals, and they took the contract, and now they've come back and said, we're afraid that when you get here, we will fail. So, I mean, that's astonishing.
That's
You know,
nuts.
yeah, it's crazy.
That
I
is
mean,
crazy.
I've told you, Kelly and I are buying a new sailboat, and there's some work being done on it so we can do the surveys and the inspections. And that's now 5 days behind schedule because the boatyard can't get people to show up for work.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
I bought a boat slip. I don't own a boat yet, but I bought a boat slip,
well,
but it's got
step one.
someone else's old lift in it, and I can't take over it. And they're like, yeah, we can't get anybody scheduled to come get it. It's just nutty world.
Yeah, and we're seeing it. I mean, the roofers can't find people, the 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 restaurants can't find people, the hotels can't find people. It's bad. And yet there's what? The last report I saw was 9 million job openings in the United States. 9 million.
And there's an unemployment insurance. Why? I don't understand. So what are you and the missus got planned for the summer other than working on launching your sailboat and your new abode?
Well, we're planning our face-to-face meetings kick off the last week of July, and so all through the month of August, I'll be traveling and meeting with my peer groups in face-to-face, and we're meeting in several locations. We're meeting on the East Coast in Delaware, Rehoboth, San Diego, Memphis, Kansas City, Louisville, Kentucky. We're doing kind of a Midwest run. We'll be down in Texas for a group, so that's going to keep me pretty busy and on the road. And
Nice.
plus, I'm working on. I'm going to be doing a seminar in about 3 weeks on June 23rd. It's going to be a 4-hour deep dive into the job efficiency, your morning mobilization, your afternoon wrap up, and job sequencing on a day-to-day basis, job by job. Really going to attack all that inefficient work levels.
Well, we have reduced staff, so you got to
Got.
maximize who you got, right?
Right, right. So it's even more important now if you're short-staffed what are you doing to maximize how efficient you're operating all day, every day? How are you starting the day? How are you ending the day? And how are the people approaching the job tasks in the field and doing it from a maximum efficiency and a safety and quality aspect?
Sure.
Instead of, are we all just kind of zigzagging around and running in circles, or are we on a real nice, clean path? And this is the way we do it on every single job. And that maximizes the efficiency, maximizes your gross margin, improves your safety, and therefore also improves your quality and impacts on your retention.
Yeah.
The better you do your work, the better everything comes out on that. So that's going to be a deep dive, half a day. And I'm telling everybody to have their production managers, account managers, field supervisors, because if you buy it, you can put as many people as you want in the conference room with a nice big flat screen that everybody has these days. So I'm working on that, and and then just staying busy with stuff. And yeah, we do want to find a week or two here to go out and try out the new boat and bring it up. We got to move it 100 miles up the coast of Florida from where it's at currently up to Merritt Island by Cape Canaveral. So
very fun. I'm jealous. I'm super jealous. I'm going to come see you. Bill Noonan, our CEO, Tim Robinson, our COO, Joe McPhail, and myself just booked 7 weeks of travel this week to go out and see customers we haven't seen in 2 years. But I was struck, Fred, with airfares a little more, hotels are a little more. And we're going to Atlanta, Georgia. The hotel is the same price as the rental car every day. Rental cars are insane.
Rental cars are awful. They have supply problems all through in February and March, I was on the road the whole time, all over the country with, again, peer group meetings, several strategic planning meetings and things like that for my clients. And my gosh, if you could get a rental car, I mean, I was 3 times in Orlando going through that airport, and I've been an Avis Premier customer since 2001, and they don't have a car for you when you get there. And then the pricing is just enormous. It's the most expensive part of the trip now. Hotel and airfare is now rental cars.
It is. We just had my niece's wedding in Charleston, Folly Beach. There were no rental cars. There were no Ubers. We were renting U-Hauls. Think about that. $19 a day to still get a U-Haul. That's what we had to do.
Yeah, my wife and I have had this ongoing debate for years about minivans. I do not like them. I almost ended up with a minivan not too long ago as a rental. And my profile on Ava says, don't issue this client a minivan.
Yeah, right now we'll take anything we can get.
Yeah. So I had, I got to drive a minivan. And now the secret's out. I haven't told Kelly about that. She doesn't know that. So if she sees this, she'll know I'm keeping that secret from her. So
that's hilarious. Well, I will wrap up with you today. You're a busy guy. 2 questions for you. If someone wants to have an exploratory phone call about what it means to join a peer group, tell us how to access you. And this 4-hour seminar on June 23rd, I don't know why anybody would miss that. It's going to maximize your workforce, and you're going to give us some KPIs and best practices for the industry about how to sequence your day. That is phenomenal, and I've never seen that done, Fred. So how do our Real Green customers get in touch with you for both of those?
Well, you can email me at fred@harvestlandscapeconsulting.com. You can call me at 619-665-7854, or you can go to harvestlandscapeconsulting.com, and both of those things will be there on our website. So there's lots of ways you can find out about that.
Awesome. I will also drop all of those comments in our post. And I thank you for spending this Fridays with Fred with me. What are we going to talk about next time we get together? What's their appetite?
Well, we can talk about, we talked a little bit about recruiting and retention. Maybe we should talk about onboarding and training.
Oh, you mean like keep the people that you actually spend all this time recruiting? Okay, I like it.
Yeah. So we can talk about that. And then after that, we'll be back into July and August, and then we can start talking about planning and budgeting.
Awesome.
So lots of things to talk about. Tell
the missus I said hello. You have a fabulous week, and thanks for spending your time with us today.
All right, Beth, you take care.
All right. Thanks, Fred.
Bye-bye. Thank you.